The smoke had stopped. For days, the Hinterkaifeck farmhouse chimney stood cold against the Bavarian sky, a silent signal that something was wrong. In the countryside, smoke meant life, warmth, meals, routine. Its absence was a quiet alarm. Neighbours would later recall the missing plume as the first sign of trouble, a void where life should have been. The cold chimney was a monument to a home gone still, a chilling prelude to the horror inside. The world didn't end with a scream, but with the unnoticed death of a fire. This is where the story begins, with a subtle, unsettling silence, and a coldness that crept in before anyone realized. Hinterkaifeck was more than a farm. It was an island of solitude, set apart from the world by its own fields. The Gruber family, Andreas, Cecilia, their daughter Victoria and her children, lived by the rhythms of the land, isolated and private. Their seclusion was both protection and vulnerability. Secrets could fester, and help was far away. Andreas Gruber was known for his difficult nature, keeping neighbours at a distance. When darkness crept in, there was no one close enough to notice. The farm's isolation, once a shield, became its undoing. The violence that struck was not just against a family, but against their entire world. The fields that sustained them became silent witnesses to their end. The first sign of intrusion was small but chilling. A Munich newspaper appeared in the house, one Andreas Gruber hadn't bought. On a remote farm, every object has a purpose. This was a message from an unseen hand. Soon after, Andreas found unfamiliar footprints in the snow, leading from the woods to the house, but none leading away. The tracks ended at a forced door, as if someone had entered and vanished. The laws of entry and exit seemed suspended. The intruder was a phantom, not bound by normal rules. The family's world was breached, not by violence, but by a quiet, confident presence. The newspaper and footprints were warnings. Someone was watching. Someone was already inside their world. Fear took root, growing in the silence. The farm was no longer just isolated. It was haunted. The abyss had opened, and the first tremor was felt. The mystery deepened. Andreas heard footsteps in the attic at night, but found nothing when he searched. The sounds returned, a phantom pacing above, turning the house into a prison of dread. The family was no longer alone. They shared their home with an unseen presence. Then the house keys vanished. Security lost, control surrendered. The intruder was now master of the house, coming and going at will. The previous maid had fled, claiming the house was haunted. Her replacement, Maria Baumgartner, arrived just hours before the massacre. Maria stepped into a story already in motion, into a space thick with anticipation of violence. The Grubers lived their final days under siege, not from an army, but from a silent invader. Every creak, every shadow was a threat. The last defences were gone. The storm was about to break. The attic was more than a hiding place. It was the killer's lair. Investigators found disturbed hay and signs of recent meals. Someone had lived above the family, watching and waiting. The killer was not a stranger bursting in, but a patient predator studying their prey from the shadows. This was not a crime of passion, but a calculated extermination. The monster was already inside, separated only by a few floorboards. The attic became a symbol of hidden evil, parasitic, intimate, and chillingly close. At Hinterkaifeck, the line between home and horror was paper-thin. On April 4th, the silence at Hinterkaifeck became impossible to ignore. The Grubers missed church, the mail piled up, and young Cecilia was absent from school. Neighbour Lorenz Schlittenbauer led a search party to the farm. They found the animals distressed, the house locked, and an unnatural quiet. In the barn, they discovered the bodies of Andreas, his wife, Victoria, and young Cecilia, lured one by one and killed with a mattock. Inside, the maid Maria and 2-year-old Josef were found dead in their beds. The entire family, 3 generations, wiped out. Yet the house was undisturbed. Money was left untouched. Robbery was not the motive. This was annihilation. Most chilling, the killer stayed for days, feeding animals, eating meals, stoking the fire. The murderer didn't flee. They lived among the dead, maintaining a grotesque routine. The crime was not just murder, but usurpation. Hinterkaifeck became a house of the dead, ruled by its destroyer. The investigation was a maze of dead ends. The murder weapon, a farm mattock, offered no clues. Autopsies led nowhere. The victims' skulls were sent to clairvoyants and lost forever. The timeline was murky. Neighbours saw smoke after the murders, suggesting the killer lingered. Over 100 suspects were questioned, but no one was charged. Theories swirled, revenge, madness, secrets, but no motive fit. The true reason for the massacre remains locked in silence, as unreachable as the victims themselves. In the absence of evidence, theories multiplied. Neighbour Lorenz Schlittenbauer was suspected. He had ties to Victoria and acted strangely at the scene. Others blamed a transient, a desperate drifter from post-war Germany. Some believed more than one killer was involved, given the methodical luring of victims. Each theory explained something, but none explained everything, especially the killer's calm after the crime. Perhaps the truth was more disturbing, a product of the times, or a darkness that can gather in isolated places. The who matters less than the what, the total breakdown of safety and reason. Hinterkaifeck became a story of chaos, not closure. In 1925, the farm was demolished, the land ploughed over in an attempt to erase the horror. But memory lingers. A small shrine marks the spot, and the story endures. The case remains unsolved, a perfect crime that resists explanation. Hinterkaifeck forces us to confront the limits of understanding and the reality of evil without reason. We are left with haunting images, footprints to the house but not away, phantom footsteps in the attic, the killer who fed the cows, and one final detail, the family dog found unharmed, barking in the barn. Why was the guardian spared? Did it know the killer? This unclosed door ensures Hinterkaifeck's darkness will never truly fade.